Would like to call to order the meeting of the special committee for the transition to 14 wards. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Ingracia. Present. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Todd. Someone's phone.
Dance break.
Did Alderman Todd respond? Alderman Page. Alderman Stevens.
Here.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderman Grass.
Here.
Alderwoman Walker.
Present.
President Green.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Todd. Alderman Page. We have 10 present. We have a quorum.
With that, I would like to entertain a motion on the approval of the minutes from Thursday, December 15th.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by the alderman from the 23rd, seconded from the alderman from the 6th, that we approve the minutes from Thursday, December 15th. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Todd. Alderman Page. Alderman Stevens.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderman Grass.
Aye.
Alderwoman Walker.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Todd. Alderman Page. We have 10 aye votes.
Wonderful. So for today's committee discussion, we are going to focus on various ordinances that mention 28 wards or that we may need to amend or update in order to be consistent as we go into 14 wards. Just for clarity purposes, each week we are going to be going through a different topic. So we're focusing on ordinances this week. Next week, we'll be focusing on ward capital. And we're getting the subject, it may be up online already, but the subject matter for this committee for each week to make sure that we are focused on getting through everything that we need to get through as we go through this transition. So the order for today, I'm first going to have the subcommittee that has been researching various ordinances give a presentation. And then after they are done presenting, we'll take public comment. And after public comment, we'll then open it up for discussion amongst alder people on how to move forward, given the information that we've been presented, both by the subcommittee and by members of the public. So with that, I will turn it over to the subcommittee to present to us on their findings on ordinances pertaining to the transition to 14 wards. Is it Alderwoman Rice? Are you taking point on that?
Yes.
All right.
All right, thanks. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Good to see you all back here again. So I'm starting off our report from the subcommittee on ordinances, and the committee also includes Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Stevens, and Alderman Grass. So the four of us have been working on these alongside some start work with the city councilor's office. So I have a short presentation. I'm going to share my screen. It's easier to walk through than some of the documents that we have. So let me get you the right window here. Okay, can you see? Yes, all right, you are seeing that. Let me start the presentation. Sorry, all right. Okay, are you seeing the specific references to expression 28 wards?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. So we were given a document by the city councilor's office that walked through kind of three separate categories of places of ordinances and mentions in the charter and mentions in our city code of the 28 wards, or wards by number. And so this first section includes the charter, wards, and compositions. That has all been amended to reflect the move to 14 wards. So we're good there. The references here in the code. The first one is for this ward boundaries established. And honestly, we're going to, or we don't need to amend that. That is amended by the ordinance that we pass implementing the new redistricting every year. So we don't need to mess with that. Oops, wow, that's really sensitive. Let me go back. The next section is under the chapter on elections that includes aldermanic terms and election years. And basically this one says, starting in 1915, odd numbered wards will be elected for 2 years to start. And then, so it established the sort of odd even there, but legal advice from our legal counsel says we can just repeal this section entirely because it still references 28 wards, and what is listed in the charter under the new transition to 14 wards is sufficient to cover this piece. So we will recommend a piece of legislation to repeal the section entirely. It is already superseded by the charter, but just for terms of clarity and cleanliness, we can go ahead and repeal that. The next one is the Civilian Oversight Board legislation that established districts. So members were selected to the COB based on districts that were based on wards. That has been amended via Board Bill 47 from Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. So that doesn't need any more work. And the last one on this section is under the water department. There was a surcharge for leak repairs that also had districts based on wards. And there was supposed to be sort of a funding mechanism that came through wards. But when we, in conversation with the water department, they've said that they have never used this piece of the code because the districts were never fully established, and repairs vary widely in cost and difficulty and that type of thing. So they don't use this at all. So we're going to also repeal that section for clarity as well. The next section here, so these do not specifically use the phrase 28 wards, but are notable provisions that may change or have changed to reflect redistricting. So this first section under the code is for the Arch Memorial Grounds Park. There, it references specifically Ward 6 and 7 as being members of this board, but it also says upon redistricting, any wards that touch the Gateway Mall area would be the two that would have, I believe they're ex officio seats as well. So even though Ward 6 and 7 are not the wards that will be touching the Gateway Mall anymore, that is not an urgent change. It's something that if the new folks want to amend that to just for clarity, they can, but the language that is in that section of the code is sufficient to handle the transition to the new 14. The third ward parking district, that does have a geographic legal description of the boundaries of the third ward. So it is my understanding, it is our understanding that anything that has a legal geographical description of boundaries and not merely just a ward number will continue under the new 14 wards, even though that ward number may not exist anymore or may have shifted to a different part, as long as there is a geographic description that is a legal description of what that district is. So that parking district will continue. And then the last major one is the Housing Conservation District, specifically exempts the 18th ward. That one also has a legal definition, geographic boundary there. So that will also continue, regardless of the 18th ward ceasing to exist. So this last bit, so we were given this list of ordinances, mainly relating to liquor control districts, 3 a.m. bar prohibitions, and vending districts. I went through each and every one of these ordinance numbers to see, what type of dates they had on them, when they were due to expire, because a lot of them are, were the liquor control district for a period of 3 years or a period of 1 year. And so a lot of these have expired. A lot of these are older and have expired. There are only a couple that are still in play, that are still in effect now. And so underneath this, on this main note, ordinance number 68990 is a citywide vending ordinance. I believe the 4th ward is the only ward that still has just the ward included. There at one point had been, I believe, the 14th ward and the 24th ward that had just the entirities of their wards were included as vending districts, and over time those had been removed from that ordinance. So this ordinance should be revisited, and in some email exchange with Alderwoman Ingracia, I know this is something that she was looking at. I'm sure we've all gotten emails about food trucks. I believe that this ordinance is impacted there. And then I believe Alderman Bosley has, a bill that also involves this ordinance. So we're going to need to take a closer look at this citywide vending ordinance. 71045 is the 21st Ward Liquor Control District. It also does include geographical boundaries of the current 21st Ward. It is one of 2 that I could find at the moment that is still in effect, because it was set out for 5 years from the effective date of 12/13/2019. So that will continue until 2024. With the 21st Ward geographic boundaries described within. The 1st Ward Liquor Control District was 3 years from February 11th of 2021, but does not include geographical legal descriptions of the ward. So that is one that I have also contacted Alderwoman Tyus to talk about and see what the next best step is to address that. Our main suggestions here are that if there are other, we have a few things that we would love to know, because we don't think that this is entirely an exhaustive list of ordinances. There are obviously some newer ones on here that were not on the original list that I was able to find going forward, but just didn't have time to sit and go through the entirety of our code of ordinances. If Alder people have liquor control districts or 3 a.m. bar prohibitions or things like that that they know only apply to their wards, if you could flag those for us, I would love to have, we talked about last time, would love to have at least a document that says, for the new 14 Alder people, here's what is in effect within your geographical boundaries, and they can decide what to do with them from there. There is also the option for, I know the Alderwoman from the 14th repealed the liquor control district that was in effect in the 14th ward in order to just clean that up and make it not in effect for someone going forward. So the next Alder person could come in and decide if they want to do a liquor control district or not. That is always an option as well, to repeal ordinances that are currently on the books. And we've got a couple of weeks to be able to introduce new board bills if that wants to happen, if anyone wants to do that by the end of session. So that's the end of my presentation here. It's a lot of sort of meaty stuff that we got into, and really trying to find out, what has been repealed, what is still in effect, is a bit of a slog to do. but we're also in conversation. So I had calls this morning with the planning department, and we're going to put out requests to each of the department heads to contact us with places that they think that they will be impacted by this going forward. So the planning department said no one has really flagged any major issues for them with the operations of their divisions of city governance at this point, that things urgently need to be fixed. There are a couple of flags on particularly special use districts, special taxing districts, preservation and review districts that they're going to be taking, that planning department is going to take a closer look at to make sure that those aren't just along ward boundaries. If they're neighborhood or if they're a piece of a neighborhood, then those types of legal descriptions will go forward. So they're going to take a look at that, and then we're going to talk further with the city councilor's office just to be sure that we're in agreement with their analysis on these sorts of things continuing. But yeah, I think that's most of it. I open up to my colleagues if there was more that you wanted to add. If this was a conglomerate of all of our work here. So if Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Stevens, or Alderman Gross, did you have anything else you wanted to add onto the presentation?
For me, just thank you so much, Alderman Rice, for presenting. I think you did a great job summing up our thoughts and needing to perhaps repeal a few things to clean things up just so they're not there if they're not being used. And I appreciate you presenting for us.
Yeah, I would echo that. Big thanks to Alderwoman Rice for presenting and really doing a lot of the work for this. I will say that we're hopeful that we have spotted all of them, but it's an imperfect system, and our group did discuss a lot about are there changes we need to make going forward to get better organized when we pass things, so we can keep track of things easier.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to give a pause. Alderman Stevens, did you have anything, or are you good?
I mean, I would also thank you. This has been an excellent subcommittee to serve on, and Alderman has done a significant amount of work. I'm belaboring the point. And when I mean a flurry of emails, all under the legal expertise of Alderwoman Rice, helping us navigate various things far outside my own personal realm of recognition. So thank you, Alderwoman Rice, for your work on the subcommittee. And I'm sorry, a comment just came through, but yes, with that, I will yield back.
Okay, so I guess the last thing that was that Alderman Gross just recognized, there was a note, I guess, on the outline that we emailed you about sort of process review, and these are a couple of things that we're going to recommend going forward. One of the things I noticed in using the city has a search tool on the city website where if you're looking up an ordinance number, it'll pull up any mention of that ordinance and further ordinances or repealing things like that. But you can find the document there, and some of the older documents have a beautiful text block on the bottom that says introduced on this date, amended on this date, third read and finally passed on this date, signed by the mayor, and in effect dates sort of on each of those with the ordinance number included. Not all of them do that. And a lot of some of our newer board bills that were passed only have the text of the board bill, don't have an effective date, don't have the signature date, don't even have the ordinance number on them. So we will be making some recommendations for how we can clean that up going forward. And some of that may be already under the work that the clerk has been doing. And then we also want to be sure that we have a clear process for the aldermen going forward of legal review of board bills as we introduce them. So especially when we're referencing potentially repealing other ordinances that are already on the books. There were a couple of instances where it looked like an alderman from one ward repealed an ordinance from a different ward that maybe shouldn't have happened that way, and then was immediately reinstituted by another alderperson. So just trying to be sure that we have a process going forward that helps kind of clean some of this stuff up. So we'll be making some more formal recommendations on that as well. Yeah, I think that is the end of our presentation for now. Happy to open it up for comments and questions, and we'll go from there.
First, I do want to answer the question in the chat. Yes, that is correct, that if there are geographical descriptions beyond just ward number, then that ordinance stays in effect for those geographical boundaries. The challenge comes when there are a few ordinances that Alderwoman Rice discussed where there are not geographical boundaries listed, there are only ward numbers listed. And so those are the ones that we are going to have to either repeal or amend to add in geographical boundaries or change ward numbers in order to make it so that those things can go forward. So Alderwoman Rice, is it my understanding that the next steps for your committee will be to kind of meet with the various alder people that those ordinances impact and figure out whether they want to move forward with a repeal or amendment or
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I was able to speak with two of the alders that I identified before the meeting today. I need to reach out to Alderwoman Keys about the 21st ward and kind of see what she wants to do there. But again, if any of you on the call or your colleagues know of continuing legislation that affects your ward by boundary that we did not flag. So if there's a liquor control district in your ward, or a 3 a.m. bar prohibition, or even a parking ordinance that specifically refers to your ward number, please let me know. I'm happy to do some work reviewing with you or with the clerk, or I'm sorry, with the legal counsel, and just see what it is that you would like to do with that going forward. So there's, if you wanted to continue to make sure that it stayed in effect through the election, through the transition to a new alderperson, you could always repeal with an effective date of June 30th of the coming year. And that way that would sort of bridge the time, and a new alderperson would be able to come in and sort of reinforce that if they wanted to, or you could just let it go until the natural expiration of these things, because generally they do have a term that those are in effect for. So as soon as that term expires, then that legislation expires. And we will be checking. So most of this was work done off of the list from the city councilor's office, conversation with planning department. I've talked to the building division. We talked with the water, Alderwoman Schweitzer talked with water division about theirs, but we will be reaching out, like I said, to all of the other department heads to figure out if there are flags that they have for us. And if any of these things are urgent, we can certainly propose legislation here in the next 2 weeks. If any of, I don't want to overload the amount of work that needs to be done by this current body. If it's something that, it's just going to clean up, maybe we don't need to propose it right now. If it's something simple and we can move that through quickly, great. But it doesn't seem like there are any major impediments at the moment that we have found to continuing operations of the board on April 18th, right? So everything is pretty well moving forward as it should, but there are places that we can clean up and ensure continuity.
All right. With that, I will transition over to taking comment from the members of the public, and then we'll go back to alder people and go through seniority to provide either questions or comments. Right. First member of the public I have is Charles Bryson. See you. If you could raise your right hand, do you commit to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President, and members of the Special Committee on the Transition to 14 Wards. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak today. TrailNet has gone on record requesting either the elimination of ward capital or to create a more equitable method of distribution. First, it is poor planning. It is impossible for the streets department and other departments to properly plan for and execute all the different street projects each year. especially with limited staffing. If the thought is not to allocate all the funding to the streets department, which again, TrailNet encourages, at least distribute the funding in an equitable manner, using such metrics as the TrailNet crash reports to identify specific streets and intersections that need to be addressed, areas of both people with lower income coupled with having high rates of renters, areas where there are fewer car owners, areas where there are people who are using public transportation, areas that have large elderly populations. These are all measures that can be both utilized to make a more equitable distribution of ward capital and can also be written into law so that changes each and every year can be made. The second topic is the use of the upcoming mayor's comprehensive street study to include Vision Zero. If money is already going to be appropriated for the mayor's comprehensive street study, why not include Vision Zero? A Vision Zero resolution by the board authorizing its process, along with the allocation of resources for the comprehensive study, is all that is needed. We must begin to get serious about the number of crashes and fatalities in our city. Implementing a Vision Zero no fatality plan, along with vigorous and strategic automatic traffic enforcement, will go a long way to reduce destructive driving, speeding, and fatalities. And finally, I personally encourage the board to go to evening meetings. Many cities and municipalities across the country see this as a benefit, as it encourages more people to either attend the meetings or in person or via Zoom or Google Meets. It is well past time for this board to do the same. With that, I will close out my testimony and obviously thank you, Madam Chair, and we'll answer any questions that may be asked.
Thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions at this time? All right, I will go on to our next speaker, Rachel Witt. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, President Green, for this opportunity, and to the aldermen present today to speak on behalf of representing the Safe Streets Committee through the Community Mobility Committee. I am the chairperson of that, and echoing on Charles Bryson on his comments, we would like to see capital funding, either all or a portion of it, taken away from the aldermen and given to the streets department. They are underfunded. We need more money in streets to make our roads safer. We need to be more equitable. We need safer streets because, and we need to communicate and collaborate better on how we do that. It's not just paving, it's how we move people, not move vehicles in this city. And we really need to rethink how we go about that, and also how other departments work together. Streets department's about paving. We need something to rethink about transportation. It would be nice to have a transportation department or division formed. It would be great to see maybe the city of St. Louis creating a public works department and maybe having Board of Public Service, Streets Department, and a transportation division all housed as one so they can communicate, collaborate, and go after more funding collectively together when we're implementing improvements throughout the city. We need to do better, and we all need to play that role, not just the aldermen, but us as citizens, and how we can be supporting you in your efforts and what we can do to make our community safer. And we all need to work together to make that happen. And I appreciate the time to be here today, just to voice the concerns from the Safe Streets Committee, from the Community Mobility Committee of the Mayor's Office. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time and for me to make some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Our Alderwoman Boyd has a question.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment because it's too many things going on. Charles Bryson and I did have a conversation in regards to that. And I guess my it's not a concern, it's just a comment, because I too agree that for one, the ward capital is nowhere near enough money in certain neighborhoods that will accommodate the needs of those communities. And then two, with this committee that we have, this special committee we have, I think what they're asking is what we're already looking for. And if I'm off, somebody tell me. We're already looking at how the city will be differently ran in regards to services, projects, the whole piece. So I think what they're asking is not astronomical or out of line. It's just to the point that we have to look at things differently. Even though we're going to 14 wards, the issues are still there. We still have a whole city that has issues. And so it's very transparent that certain parts of the city are not being focused on in regards to the services that Rachel and Charles are speaking on. And so that's my issue. You know, all the people's role is legislators. All the people's role is not services. And I think that's something that with our constituent services, that our committee, that's something we need to be looking at. We need to look at how these services will be distributed and how we'll have the checks and balances. And what Rachel and Charles is talking about is accurate. But in regards to the ward capital, I think that's a whole nother can of worms we're gonna have to open up, because it's not what people thinking it is, and the little dollars that they're putting out. And I just have a problem, and I had a conversation with somebody else about that when they say pass it out equally. How can you pass it out equally when you have one side of town that's not getting any of the services in regards to ward capital to get the needs addressed, and then another side is so. And so I think that's something with the ward capital subcommittee and the constituent services committee, Madam Chair, that we have to look at to say, how would this look differently? Because it's not like it's been looking. Am I making sense?
I'm in complete agreement, Alderwoman.
Okay, I see you and Alderwoman Rice head going up and down, and I was like, you know, this is not business as usual anymore. It's got to be looked at holistically differently to say, okay, what really are we trying to do? And constituent services is the number one priority. So that's what I want to say. Thank you all.
Exactly. And I think that this is great that we have members of the community that are bringing this forth this week, knowing that next week we're going to be doing a deeper dive into ward capital. So this gives us some food for thought over the next week too, as we prepare that presentation. Alderwoman Rice.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add, there obviously is an ordinance for ward capital that addresses this that I did not list in our presentation because there is specifically the committee on ward capital. But the language that is included in the most recent ordinance on that is the ward capital improvement account shall be credited and allocated in equal amounts to 28 sub-accounts, one for each ward of the city. That's the relevant language to sort of the 28 ward reference. And you're right that it says equal at the moment. And we all know that the needs are not equal, just the sheer mileage of streets and sidewalks that exist in certain wards versus others. If that money is supposed to be coming out of this account, then obviously an equal distribution, even to the 14, is not going to work well. So just offering our support as the Committee on Ordinances to the Ward Capital Committee and to the Citizen Service Committee as well, because it really is. Alderman Stevens pointed out, it's a legislative issue, it's a fiscal issue, it's a citizen service issue to try to, get this right here going forward. So my read from the ordinance perspective is we're okay with what the ordinance on ward capital is. There's nothing that's, the sky is not going to fall if we don't amend that before the new session. But it does need to be amended before the new budget cycle to make sure that it accounts for the 14 wards and any changes in the way that we want to distribute that. So Thank you.
Well, any further questions from members of the committee? Right, then I will move on to our next speaker, Cindy Mentz. Cindy, do I see you? There you are. I see you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
You may proceed.
okay. Thank you, Madam President and members of the Special Committee of Ward Reduction. Thank you for allowing me to present. My name is Cindy Mentz, and I'm the CEO of TrailNet. TrailNet is the region's nonprofit dedicated to safe streets for all. And we've published an annual crash report, which spells out dangerous driving corridors in the region for people outside of cars as well as people driving. And it's really a snapshot of St. Louis's growing crisis of pedestrian fatalities. I come to speak to you today about Ward Capital. As has been stated, this current system of distributing ward capital is inequitable, and it does not allow for comprehensive planning and execution by the streets department due to the resources being distributed equally ward by ward. The inequity exists because many north side neighborhoods need much more investment than a 1/28 equal distribution, while other wards have more sources for private infrastructure and development. Here's a recent example that I think illustrates the situation. TrailNet recently conducted a comprehensive sidewalk audit for the Ville and Greaterville neighborhoods, some 34 square miles. What we uncovered was a majority of sidewalks that were in disrepair, impassable, non-existent, and discontinuous. This audit is one of many examples of the walking hazards for people who might have to walk in the street to get to school, to the store, to public transit. There's also a strong need for a more comprehensive planning and development of infrastructure facilities that can slow down cars and protect people outside of cars, not block by block or ward by ward, but citywide. TrailNet is calling for this elimination of ward capital, with the funding going directly to the streets department to be used equitably on a need-first basis. TrailNet encourages the board and the streets department to use our crash reports and these recently completed sidewalk audits. And most importantly, to utilize the mayor's upcoming comprehensive street study. Sources like the American Community Survey, data from Bi-State can be used to help identify those places that lack car ownership and rely on public transportation and factor that into establishing priorities. Thank you for allowing me this time to present. And I just want to echo all the comments that we're hearing about ward capital today. TrailNet stands ready to support how best we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kelly McGowan.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Do you swear to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
All right, so again, thank you so much, Madam President and other members of this special committee. My name is Kelly McGowan, and I'm speaking as a native St. Louisan, resident of the new 9th Ward and founder of Transform 314. Our mission is to educate, engage, and empower Black St. Louisans to drive the policy changes at the local level needed to create thriving communities. While I greatly appreciate this opportunity to provide my input this morning, most residents don't have the luxury of logging onto a Zoom meeting at 11 a.m. on a Thursday to give feedback to their elected officials. I get it, but our city has to do better than this effort. There is a clear disconnect between the City of St. Louis government and its residents. If unattended, this disconnect may grow even larger to the detriment of our city. I see the transition of our city from 28 to 14 wards as an opportunity to co-create community engagement standards and practices with residents. What could this look like? First, you have to go where the people are. Partner with community-based organizations, recreational centers, libraries, and other spaces where residents already are and talk to them. With all the events going on in this city, for instance, comedians Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock will be here later this month. Use those opportunities to get some face time with folks. Partner with largely followed media outlets like Voices of the People and the New World STL News. You'll have to get some talking points together, but engaging people where they already are means that another meeting doesn't need to be scheduled. Second, when meeting people where they are, ask them how they want to be engaged moving forward. From there, develop an infrastructure that supports the needs and preferences for residents to be engaged. Equity will play a role in this, and I'm not talking about the buzzword that folks like to throw around these days. Not everyone has access or uses the internet or social media, so employing those types of efforts in addition to meeting folks where they are in their neighborhoods and other networks will have to occur. And third, the city will have to invest in a community engagement infrastructure that is incorporated into the workings of our government. This could look like ensuring members of the Board of Aldermen have at least one staff member dedicated to outreach and communications in their ward. The hired staff should have experience and be providing should be provided training to do this effectively. This could also look like providing opportunities at every full Board of Aldermen meeting for residents to weigh in on proposed legislation and other concerns. St. Louis County and other municipalities allot time during their local government meetings for residents to express themselves. And I know I feel some side-eye energy and eye rolls there, but I gotta put it out there while I have this opportunity to address everybody this morning. And ideally, this could also look like advocating for the creation of an Office of Community or Neighborhood Engagement. Numerous cities have departments such as this. One of those cities which I spoke with is Houston. Their Office of Neighborhood Engagement creates community partnerships that provide information and engages residents in civic activities with the goal of increasing civic participation. I could talk for days about this, obviously, but I know my time is limited. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to working with all of you for the betterment of our city.
Thank you, Kelly. Would you be willing to email your remarks to me? You made some really great points that I want to make sure my office follows up on. Thank you. All right. Wally Stewart.
Hello,
Hello. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the Special Committee on Ward Reduction. I won't take up a lot of your time today because much of what I've had to say has been said here already. I really want to emphasize and underline Alderwoman Boyd's point about this being an inflection point in St. Louis history where we have the opportunity to reinvent this city in ways especially in ways, as Kelly was just saying, that talk about the relationship between government and its citizens. I think one of the main reasons we're losing population is because our population has no sense that its government is looking out for its interests. We have a huge opportunity to change this. We have money coming from the federal government. We have money coming from football. We have a whole new Board of Aldermen. We've got a new president of the Board of Aldermen. This is a moment for St. Louis to look to foundational, fundamental change in how we do things and who we are as a city and start to change our self-image and our image in the world. I really want to just give you all the opportunity and permission from those of us sitting out here in the city. Think big, think deep, and look at foundational reform. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Wally. There any other comments from members of the committee before we adjourn for today?
All right, I think you want to go through the like the full committee.
Yes, from the full committee. So hold on, I'm bringing up my, got to get back to the right sheet. All right, I'll go through the roll here. Alderwoman Davis, she here? Alderman Vaccaro, any comments or questions?
No, I'm mostly listening right now. Thank you.
Alderwoman Ingracia,
No, thank you, Madam President.
Vice Chairwoman Boyd, any comments or questions?
No, Madam President, I have none.
Alderman Bosley,
Yeah.
I would say thank you. We appreciate those members of the general. Oh, crap, sorry about that. We got an alley full of trash out here. We appreciate the comments from the people who were able to come today. Thank you all very much. We know that it is difficult being able to show up to a meeting at 11 o'clock during the middle of the week. Many people are working. So for those folks who do speak for multiple people who are at home trying to figure out what it is that we're going to do and can do to make our city more proficient and efficient, we appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us today and giving out some great ideas and things that we could actually tangibly look at implementing and continue to have the conversations that we're having right now, and hopefully get to a point where we can have a meeting at 6 and maybe another time, whatever it takes for us to start really being able to engage with the public at a time where the public can engage back. So I just wanted to let you know we appreciate your comments, and thank you also to all the people who worked on bringing forth the changes that we're looking at thus forth. But thank you all.
Thank you, Alderman Bobry. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Alderwoman Rice.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to echo thanks for the folks that came in and spoke with us today. I, especially Kelly, I've been thinking about an Office on Public Engagement for a while, and that's something that I would love if we had the funding, if we can find the right funding mechanism for the city to be able to do, because I agree that that is one of the places where, the city government as a whole could do a lot better in engaging folks and getting input and making sure people know about meetings and that type of thing. And recommending, for the new 14, if committees do stay in any sort of a hybrid capacity, that we make available a room at City Hall for people to be able to come in physically and grab a laptop and participate in meetings if we're still meeting online, try to open up those avenues. So thanks all for your comments, and we will definitely be thinking about them going forward.
Thank you. Alderman Todd. I don't think he's here. Alderman Page. Alderman Stevens.
Thank you, Ms. President, Madam President, rather. I do have 3 quick things. One, I would also like to echo my thanks for the speakers that came today from the public. I always chuckle when members of the public thank us for giving them our time, when really it is you giving us your time. So I always appreciate that. And it is helpful, at least for me. I cannot speak for the full board, but public comment is helpful for me. The second item I have absolutely forgotten, so I apologize. But the third item is one of the things that I'm working on, both on this subcommittee and then also the subcommittee for committees. So the subcommittee committee is being very intentful in creating a narrative of the changes that are occurring, specifically with city code, with various structure changes and whatnot, so that we can provide that to not only city departments, but also the public. So I just want to put to our guests today, as well as to the public, that this process is being documented, and any final changes, be they ordinance repeals or be they just structural changes, infrastructural changes, all that will be compiled, will be condensed into a report and made public for whomever might enjoy reading it. So if you aren't able to attend a meeting, nevertheless, the information will be there once we get to the finish line. So thank you, everyone. And with that, Madam President, I yield back. Ooh.
Thank you. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you to everyone who came and spoke today. A lot of good points made. I think somebody has their mic on. But a lot of good points made. I really appreciate everyone's time. I think the subcommittee on the ordinances has marching orders for moving forward with putting together some legislation to repeal some things. Didn't seem like anybody had an issue with those things that needed to just be repealed to clean things up. So I'm sure you'll see legislation soon from us, and I'm sure we'll make sure to get it to everybody here. For potential co-sponsorship. I would say everyone on the subcommittee being on things would be fantastic. And I look forward to hearing the presentation next week on Ward Capital. I think it'll be really interesting. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Alderman Gross.
No comment for me. I'll second my thanks for people showing up and being engaged. And I definitely think the word capital discussion is going to be a good one. And on the last, I think it really does, I like the fact that we have committees and we do things in committees and we have public comment in committees, but we should definitely think of a way to make some sort of hybrid model where people can show up to City Hall and, and have access to a laptop, like Alderman Rice said, or something, some option like that. That should be doable. So thank you, everybody, for their work.
Wonderful. Alderwoman Walker.
Thank you, Madam President. Want to just repeat the thank you for the public coming in and participating today. And I agree with the gentleman 100% that said that we're at a point where we have the opportunity to think big and make St. Louis fair and equitable for everybody. And I hope we take this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just have to say, again, thank you to members of the public for coming out today. There was some really great, I think, feedback for us to take to heart today. I'm looking forward to our discussion on ward capital next week. Please spread the word to your networks for folks to come and sign up and testify. So as the committee is kind of putting forth the things that they have found so far and suggestions that they're getting, that we're also making sure that we're hearing from the public during that process. I do want to also say that I'm working on getting a personnel committee meeting scheduled for next week. And one of the things that we will be discussing is the hybrid technology. So we do have bids that we have gotten for being able to do those hybrid meetings of both in person and virtual, to give members of the public the ability to do either, and also allow us to have more flexibility in meeting locations and have people there both in person and virtually. So we will be discussing that very shortly. We had to first get in place the filtration devices in the chambers so that we can safely be there. That is in progress. And from my conversations earlier today with the clerk's office and with facilities, we should be up and ready to be back into the chambers next week with that up and running. So we are making some headway on some of the items that have been mentioned already, trying to get these things in place and make sure that as we go into the next budget cycle, we are figuring out all the asks that we have from the legislative branch of government to make sure we have the funding to transition us to a more collaborative body that is able to take in resident feedback and engage with residents in a more genuine and cohesive manner. So thank you so much. We will be back at this 11 a.m. next Thursday to discuss ward capital. I am guessing that will be a longer and more robust discussion, but a very necessary one. As so many folks have said today, this is the inflection point. This is the catalyst and the opportunity to do things differently, to make sure that we are putting resources out there in ways that are equitable, not just equal, and ensuring that our city departments are having the resources that they need to be able to effectively create safer communities, particularly when it comes to pedestrian and cyclist safety. So thank you so much for coming out today. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Are there any absent members that we need to excuse?
Sorry. Thank you. Any?
Yeah, Alderman Todd, we had Alderman Page.
Okay. And was Alderwoman Davis here at any point?
And Alderwoman Davis.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to excuse the aforementioned alder people.
I'll make the motion that we excuse the three that were not here.
It's been motioned by the alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the alderwoman from the 8th, that we excuse the aforementioned alder people. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd. I think it was the Alderwoman from the 13th that seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We will see you back here at 11 a.m. next Thursday.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a
Thank you.
good one.
Bye.